Welcome in on this Wednesday edition of Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Today on the show, we'll take a look back to yesterday in the Phillies-Braves game. Old problems, new times for the Atlanta Braves, and the schedule's about to actually open up for the Atlanta Falcons. It's all next. Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked On Sports Atlanta.
This is Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Hittin Hard is brought to you by Bet Online. We ask you to head to youtube.com, put Locked On Sports Atlanta into your search browser. Get there, hit that subscribe button, leave us a comment. We are free and available on all of your favorite podcast platforms, which include Spotify, Odyssey, all of your favorites. Download us for free. Hit that 5-star review button for us as well. And, of course, now you can find us both on Roku and Amazon Fire. Check us out on those platforms. At JMCH316 is where to find me on my Twitter page. Well, it obviously didn't go the way the Braves wanted to yesterday. 7-6. The Braves did rally for 3 runs off the Matt Olson homer in the bottom of the 9th inning and, made it a 1-run game, but that was all they were able to grab from there. So, look, a few things about this. One is I don't attribute this to rust or anything like that. No, the Braves had 5 days off and this, that, and the other. But with all due respect, given the alternative, playing 3 games in 3 days if needed over the weekend, this, that, and the other, this was the much better alternative all the way around. I don't think the Braves were rusty per se. Max Fried yesterday didn't pitch well, 3 1/3, and he really had to labor through all of that. He gave up 8 hits, 6 runs, 4 of them were earned, only a couple strikeouts, only 61 pitches. So it's not like he threw 89 pitchers in 3 innings. He just kind of labored along, and he physically looked a little bit like maybe there's still some hangover, not rust, but remember, he was sick and kind of, not so healthy right in those last, that last stretch of starts for Max Fried, especially that last start against, what was it, Mets, I guess it was, that he kind of gutted it out, throwing up and all that kind of stuff. He just didn't look right out of all of it. But good news is, look, the Braves got base runners all day long, right? I mean, they were getting guys on base, but it's kind of the same old story, and we'll talk about this, coming up next time. Braves were 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position and left the bases loaded twice in that game. I mean, those are things that you can't do when it's playoff baseball. You have to cash in. Somehow you have to push at least 8 to play if you've got bases loaded in less than 2 outs. You got to find a key hit. Give the Phillies credit. In that first inning, they got 2 runs in that first inning. They had 4 consecutive hits with 2 outs that led to those 2 runs. So give them some credit. That's how you got to play playoff baseball. Now, there were a lot of funny narratives that people were coming up with in this game. Oh, see how the Braves or see how the Phillies are bunting and see how Harper. Okay, Harper got credited for a sacrifice on a play where he was trying to bunt for a base hit. He wasn't trying to sacrifice anybody over. He was trying to bunt down even the announcers brought this up, trying to bunt down the line and beat the shift to try to get some things going. And it turned out that he couldn't figure it out, and he bunted into a sacrifice. So they weren't, and again, when Schwarber and those guys squared up the bunt, those were free outs. Thank you. We'll take that all day long. So the Braves are built off the home run. Home runs and strike. How long? We started this podcast in April. That's at least the first day on this podcast that you've heard me say strikeouts and home runs. That's all baseball is now. That's all guys do. That's how the Braves are built. They have the second most home runs in Major League Baseball. Only Yankees. And think about it. The Yankees have the all-time American League home run leader on their squad. That's the only team that out-homered the Braves this year. So the Braves are not going to dink and dunk and stuff like that. But one thing that they do have to use, and I'll tell you what the other part of this is going to be interesting. JT Realmuto for the Phillies is not just a really good offensive catcher, but he's a very good defensive catcher as well. He's certainly one of the better defensive catchers in the league. Braves did not run on him yesterday. Now, game dictate things. I mean, I get it. Okay. But with right-handers on the mound now going for Philadelphia, that's going to mean Ronnie, Dansby, Harris is going to be your 1, 2, 3. So all of your speed is at the top of the order. You got to take advantage of it. You have to find a way to use your speed. and you have to run a little bit on Realmuto. You got to make him make a play. You know, the Phillies challenged Michael Harris in center field to make some throws home. You have to make guys make plays, right? We talk about how valuable base runners are in postseason baseball. You want to pressure on defenses, pressure on pitchers. Make everybody have to make a play. Force your defense into a play. Force a pitcher to have to make good pitches. Force a pitcher to have to throw over, right? Open teams up to make mistakes out there. I think that's one of the things that the Braves are going to have to try to move along here in this series, because now you're going to get your top 3 speed guys in that order. And I'm guessing probably Olsen going to hit 4th, Riley 5th. We'll see what the lineup looks like today. Chance of rain, so this game may get delayed for a while. But it'll change up because Harris won't be hitting at the bottom of the order now. So all your speed's going to be at the top. Braves have to take advantage of all that. So you got to find some timely hits. You know, Philadelphia at one point had like 8 of their first 11 hits or whatever, like were 2 outs. I mean, that's winning baseball. And again, that's some bad luck for Max Fried. That's some bad luck for their bullpen, this, that, and the other, right? That those kinds of things happen. And by and large, the bullpen pitched well. I mean, Lee, McHugh, and Stevens came in and gave you 4 1/3 innings of 2-hit, no-run baseball with 5 strikeouts. So those guys did their job. Chavez came in. You know, the only if I had any sort of just kind of disagreement, and again, in the scheme of things, this didn't really matter, is a little bit surprised that they hit Grissom for Grossman, because Grossman's a switch hitter, but he hits 320 against left-handers. All right, that's what they got Grossman for, is a good right-handed bat. I was a little bit surprised they pulled him because he's hitting 320 versus, you know, left-handed pitching, and they decided to bring Grissom in. Well, by the way, I thought Grissom was going out to left field. Didn't you all tell me that he was going to left? Anyway, so we won't discuss all that because y'all were wrong about that. But anyway, look, here's the thing. Am I worried about the Braves? Not a bit. Okay? I'm even going to tell you, and you all are going to disagree with me. I already know the comments coming in because I talked about this last night. I don't think that this is as must win as some people think. If the Braves get down 0-2, there's no reason they can't go to Philadelphia and win 3 straight if they had to. Just remember, they just had their backs up against the wall against a 100-win team that they had to win 3 straight against. I understand it was at Truist Park, but you still had to sweep the 100-win team that was leading the division with their 2 aces going at the very top. You got Scherzer and DeGrom going right out the gate on you, and what the Braves do? Swept them. Braves were 10.5 back, fought, scratched, and clawed. Remember that meeting in Arizona? We're 10.5 back, 14 games in a row that they went on and won. So I have immense confidence that the Braves will handle this. I think the Braves will win today. Kyle Wright will get the ball today. Game 3 is going to be fascinating. Look, I'm going to tell you now, Pitch Strider, health and all that. I got news for you. If he's on the playoff roster, they're telling you that he's healthy enough to get ready going. Even if you tell me he's a bullpen start, right? He gives you 3 or 4 innings, you know, one of those openers or whatever they call that in baseball today, where a guy comes in for a few innings to start the game. Do that. I would rather see him in game 3 than hand the ball in that ballpark to Morton for game 3. He threw a side session yesterday, did Strider. He came out of it fine. I expect him to be some form of the starter for what game 3 is. So Braves have to find some, you know, clutch hitting. We'll talk about that here in just a couple of minutes, but you know, they got to get back to winning baseball. You know, use your speed, you know, get your starting pitching back on track, take all the advantages. This will be a fun game today. Wheeler and Wright. These are 2 top-tier starters, right? That this is definitely a playoff atmosphere. I expect the Braves to win today. They'll win this series. I'm not concerned, but certainly have to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you. I want to talk about my friends over at Bet Online. Bet Online is your number 1 source for all of your wagering information. Listen, you want to get in the mix, right? Playoff baseball, man, great games yesterday. How about the walk-off in Houston with Jordan hitting that walk-off homer, 3-run shot right down to the last out and all that. A lot of great action going on. Guess what tomorrow is? Opening of the NFL season. Huge weekend in college football. BetOnline.net. Take that mobile device and head there today. Get all the information that you need to get involved in sports wagering information. Look, podcasts, e-betting, scores, stats, everything is available to you right in the palm of your hand. So take your mobile device, head to betonline.net today. Check out all of the news and action and information. All the sports that you want to bet on, everything is available to you right there at betonline.net. Betonline.net is where the action starts. Well, it's old problems and new times for the Atlanta Braves. And this is where it gets a little bit frustrating. And look, this is certainly fixable and certainly not something to necessarily panic about. But remember way back when we first started this journey together here and the Braves were kind of floundering around and couldn't get things on track. And then we talked about, when they got on that big winning streak and they really started to turn some things around, what was the big difference about the Braves? And I gave you all the stats and the numbers. They were hitting with runners in scoring position. They were hitting like what, 220, 230 with runners in scoring position for the first couple of months of the season. Then they get into June and all of a sudden, it's 320, 325. And all of a sudden you start winning baseball games, right? I mean, baseball's not a hard thing to figure out, right? I mean, when you get opportunity, you got to cash in. Bases loaded, you got to drive a guy in, okay? Sacrifice fly, a bleeder, a bloop, a double off the wall, bang one over the fence. Whatever it is, you got to find a way to drive guys in when that, is presented to you, because pitchers are going to tighten up, and look, guys nowadays are just flailing away out there. So, some of the pressure is not on pitchers anymore because they know guys expand their strike zone and you can throw it, but you got to cash in, right? So the Braves in their last, what would this be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, their last 8 games, which includes yesterday. Yesterday, they were 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position. So take the final 7 regular season games, okay, which is Philly, Mets, Washington, Marlins, whatever, that whole vagabond group of teams, whatever like that. Take the last handful of games. The Braves in their last handful of games here are 15 for 71 with runners in scoring position. They're hitting 211 with runners in scoring position. So, again, you look at 2 for 9 yesterday, but you take these last 8 games, and it's 211. So it's new times, but the same old problems. Now, the good thing for the Braves is that, like most teams, but Braves maybe, Braves, Yankees, Dodgers kind of at the top, right? They can mash their way through it. Fortunately for the Braves, their lineup is so deep, and they have so many guys. And so many guys, by the way, can hit the ball out of the ballpark. Go up and down the Braves lineup, right? Ronnie could be a big power guy. Dansby, Harris, Olsen, Riley, even if Ozuna plays, right? Contreras, d'Arnaud, like you got plenty of power up and down the lineup, right? And those guys can kind of mash their way through it. So when they do take advantage, like they may only have 1 hit with runners in scoring position, but that can be a 3-run homer for the Braves. That can be a 2-run homer, right? They can only have 1 or 2 hits with runners in scoring position, but they have the ability to accumulate a lot of runs when that happens. But it has certainly been one of the Braves' big momentum swing things has been when they hit with runners in scoring position, wins just start piling up. When they kind of flounder around, they have to kind of scavenge, they have to be like vultures. They kind of have to scavenge around. You need a really good pitching performance here. You need a game-saving catch from a Michael Harris, right? You need some late-game heroics from a guy. You need 16 strikeouts from a Spencer Strider, right? You need these little other things to go along with it and keep this train rolling, right? So, look, the Braves yesterday, 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position. They left a total of 9 guys on base yesterday, which doesn't sound as bad, but if you go through everybody individually, each individual guy, when you combine them, they left a whole ton of guys on there. But they were 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position. That's the difference in that game yesterday. Fried didn't pitch well, but you could have gotten through that if you could have cashed in early in that game. You could have knocked the Phillies pitcher out multiple times early in that game, like literally knocked him out. Give him the big shot, and he would have been done, right? But instead, the Braves left the bases loaded. So we're kind of going back into that, mode of, okay, we're not really producing with runners in scoring position. And this is not unique to any one player or any one guy. It just sort of seems to be that team thing. But the reason I'm not as panicked, like I said, is because when the Braves, do come through in these situations, they can accumulate a lot of runs quickly. Yesterday on the bases loaded, if you could have accumulated just even 2 hits with the bases loaded, you're adding 4 more runs most likely onto the Braves total, 4 or 5 more runs on the Braves total. And yeah, I understand. Look, Contreras got that bad strike call. Okay, but again, that was only going to be ball 3. Okay, that's not the difference between why they won and didn't lose. Look, I hate to tell you, okay, umpiring is disastrous across the entire league. It ain't unique to the Braves that they're getting bad umpiring. Umpiring is disastrous across the league. You have to fight through that. Phillies fought through it. They found a way. They had 4 straight hits with 2 outs. That's how you overcome bad umpiring and stuff like that. You take the game out of the umpire's hands. So I'm not buying all of that and this, that, and the other. Yeah, it sucked or whatever like that. Then Contreras hit the double play, and that was the end of the inning. But you have to find a way to capitalize. And right now, unfortunately for the Braves, they're sort of in that trend again of, okay, we're not really producing with runners in scoring position. And look, this can change in the blink of an eye, right? Today, you get bases loaded a couple of times, couple of, hits, and all of a sudden, now you're rocking and rolling, right? Now, all of a sudden, your offense has got it cranked up and going. And what do we talk about all the time? What they look for in baseball, turn the lineup over, right? Burn and churn and turn that lineup over. And I expect Michael Harris, he's going to be hitting at the top of the order. So that gives you one of your best hitters up top again. So you're not, you got all your speed guys. So as well as I do that, okay, I got those guys. I get some of those guys on base. And Ronnie looked like he was back yesterday. He had 3 hits. That was really good to see. Come right out of the gate and got it cranked up and going right away. That was good to see. But with those guys, listen, what did we talk about before? A little bloop in between the left and right fielder. Our guys can score from first on those kinds of plays. Our guys can certainly score from second on a little bloop hit. Bang one off the wall, and my guys at first are running all around the bases out there. So this is where we talk about, part of, the runners in scoring position thing and maximizing it, also using your speed, right? And I do think it's going to be interesting to see how they handle Realmuto and stuff like that. You get a guy on, Ronnie takes a walk, he gets on first. Is he going to steal? Is he going to try to get in scoring position right away to where Dansby can either move him along or drive him in, with a single? So they've got to get themselves back on track with this part of it. If they get that part fixed, to be honest with you, if that 2-11 becomes 3-11 in the next handful of games, we're going to be talking about the Braves winning all kinds of playoff games here. As I said before, I'm not, concerned or anything like that, but it is frustrating that some of those old bad habits are starting to creep up here for the Atlanta Braves. Get right today. Get Kyle right today, right? And then let's head to Philadelphia and win this series and wrap things up. Don't forget, you can find us Roku, Amazon Fire. Check us out on those platforms. Download us for free. Spotify, Odyssey, all your favorite podcast platforms are available there. 5-star review us and check us out for free on all of those. So the Falcons obviously have another tough game coming up this weekend. They're going to be at Mercedes Benz Stadium with the San Francisco 49ers coming in. And if you look at all the defensive statistics for the 49ers, they're like number 1 in everything. Take whatever you want, rush, pass, this, that. They're number 1 in everything. Their defense has been outstanding, this year. So that's going to be tough to try to come up with a victory this weekend. But look, it's same old formula, right? Control the line of scrimmage, make some plays, run the football effectively, and you're going to be in every game in the NFL. Like that's literally, you don't have to get too more outside the box on all that kind of stuff. So, but I will say this, though. Once they get through the 49ers, the schedule does start to open up a little bit, okay? They'll be in Cincinnati the next week. And look, Cincinnati's got a couple of wins, but they don't look like the team that was the runner-up in the Super Bowl last year. And by the way, they're averaging almost a touchdown less scoring offensively this year than they were last year. Now, Burrow's got some big numbers, but Jamar Chase, for instance, he's got some really good numbers, but he's literally about half his yards per reception than he was last year. He was like 19 yards per reception last year. He's like 10 this year. So while he's got like 30-something catches already, quarter of the way through the season, his yards per reception are not big like they were last year. He's not that huge downfield threat like he was a year ago. And like I said, they're scoring about a touchdown per game less this year than they were last year. And defensively, they're really not changed as far as their scoring defense goes. Then after you get on the road, and again, I know it's on the road in the NFL, but you don't feel terrible about that game. Then you look, home with Carolina, and then home with the Chargers. And then the Thursday night game, which will be at Carolina on November 10th. Okay, so after you get through 49ers and Cincinnati, 2 of your next 3 games are against Carolina. Well, they just fired their head coach. If there is a team that is worse than the Atlanta Falcons, it's them. Oh, yeah, don't look now, but they just put Baker Mayfield, who's going to miss like 6 weeks. So, again, that experiment hasn't worked out very well. They fired their coach. So both of those games are certainly very winnable for the Atlanta Falcons. You mix the Chargers in between, they're up, they're down, right? I mean, if you look at their numbers, they're not scoring at the same level. I mean, so I'm not telling you it's going to be easy, but, they've not been any great shakes this year. And then it's the Bears and then at Washington. Well, the Bears pass it less than the Falcons, and they're really mediocre. And the Washington, whatever they're called now, the Vagabonds, the Washington Vagabonds or the Washington Gavones or whatever they are nowadays, that whole experiment isn't working out. Carson Wentz has been a disaster. So, look, I'm not telling you the Falcons are about to go on a 5 or 6 game winning streak. But given how they've handled their business in this part of the season, there are certainly some wins that are very much right there that let's talk about a couple quick things here. Let's sidebar for just a second. Did you see that Deion Jones is going to get activated? He's going to start practicing this week. And according to Mary Kay Cabot, who does a great job covering the Browns for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, they think he's very much going to play this weekend. Wow, isn't that amazing? He's just miraculous. So just random happenstance, coincidence that all of a sudden, as soon as he gets traded, he's back practicing and probably going to play this weekend. Oh, okay. Oh, his arm's not broken? Oh, okay. Anyway, that. We'll hate on Mariota a little bit later this week because I've got some fun next-gen stat numbers and stuff like that, for all my Mariota fans out there that think he's the second coming and all this kind of stuff. The metrics and the numbers don't really kind of add up that the Falcons are winning in spite of him. But okay, so now we've sidebarred. Let's go back to the schedule and everything that's out there. But there are certainly over the next several weeks through the look. Then you got the Pittsburgh Steelers. You could make a case right now. I can't believe I'm about to say this. You can make a case right now. The Steelers are the worst team in the NFL. They are the worst team in the NFL. And poor Mike Tomlin, may end up with his first losing season ever this year. But the Steelers are a hot mess. And then it's the Saints. So, look, we looked at this Falcons schedule and at the beginning of the year kind of wondered how it would play out. And this is the beauty of the NFL, right? Like you make proclamations and you think you know some things and this, that, and the other. Then you get into games and, things start to happen. But if you look at the Falcons schedule, this is going to be a really tough game. 49ers are a top-tier team. They were in the NFC Championship game last year, right? Their defense is outstanding. And no shock that they're lines of scrimmage. But, they're dealing with some injuries. We'll get an injury report a little bit later this week. We'll see who starts to practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? And again, you don't practice on Friday, good chance that you won't, be around. We'll see today if Kyle Pitts is out practicing and things like that. But certainly the schedule starts to open up for the Atlanta Falcons. There are some teams that you could certainly say are not as good as the Falcons right now. Panthers aren't as good as the Falcons right now. I don't think the Bears are as good as the Falcons right now. Washington probably not as good as the Falcons right now. Pittsburgh not as good as the Falcons right now. So this is their stretch to make some hay. Because at the end of the year, look, in New Orleans, that's always a wild swing game. At Baltimore, Christmas Eve, that's going to be really tough. Arizona at home, look, they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot. They're still a very talented team. That's going to be tough. And then home with Tampa Bay, never going to be easy. And, that may be Tom's final regular season game that he ever plays or whatever like that. So the end of the schedule, not real easy. The beginning of the schedule, not real easy. But you get through this week and things start to open up. And then, the Falcons will mix in a bye week and all that through the middle. But over this next handful of games, if the Falcons are going to kind of find some wins and stay in contention a little bit and make this an interesting season, after Sunday, it's going to be over this next 4 to 5 week stretch because they can certainly beat Carolina on the road or at home. They can beat Pittsburgh. They can beat Washington. They can beat Chicago. Doesn't mean they will, Doesn't mean that they will beat those teams, but you don't feel like you're mismatched, or you don't feel like that they're going to overwhelm you or anything, right? You don't feel like that those teams, are going to just, take it right down the throat of the Atlanta Falcons and just, it's a complete mismatch. If everybody's healthy for the 49ers, this feels a little mismatchy, okay? But look, the philosophy of run the football effectively, control the line of scrimmage on the offensive and defense side, that's your winning formula. That's how you win. And dare I say, we have an advantage on the sidelines now. We didn't have an advantage on the sidelines with the last regime. Not at all. In fact, we had a disadvantage most weeks on the sidelines with the last regime. So, again, the one-score games and the record and what they've done and what Arthur's been able to do coaching them up, it's all those are all the little sidebars as to why you say, okay, Falcons might find themselves the ability to maybe start to, accumulate a few wins here and there. And I know that's going to upset we want a top 3 pick, we want Will Anderson or Stroud or Young or whatever like that. I get all that. But as I've tried to explain to you for the last, 6 months, Falcons are in the business of winning football games. Players want to win, coaches want to win, GM wants to win. I'm telling you, I understand that they won't be measured by what their actual win total is this year, but if you're one of the dregs of the universe, owners are not going to sit by and watch their franchise be the laughing stock of the NFL. You're a 1 or 2 win, 3 win team in football. You're 2-15, 3-14. You're one of the laughing stocks of the NFL. Owners aren't going to sit by with all that. Hell, the Panthers are only 1-4. It's not like that they're, again, I know they're not a very good franchise. They haven't been very good, but owners aren't going to sit by and just let their franchise just go in the crapper like that. Their decision-making may not fix what their problems are, but they're not going to let these guys just go in the crapper for all of it. So good news for the Falcons. You get through this week, things start to open up, and maybe there's a chance to accumulate a few wins. All right, thank you so much for making Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen every day. Make ATL Day 1s your second listen every day. Tanitra Batiste, Jarvis Davis, talking about all things in the heart of the city of Atlanta. Free and available on our YouTube page at Locked On Sports Atlanta. Hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment. Of course, you can find us. We are free and available, all your favorite podcast platforms. You can download us anywhere. Check us out. Spotify, Odyssey, whatever your favorites are. Download us for free. Leave us a 5-star review. Roku and Amazon Fire. Check us out on those platforms as well. You can find all of our updates and everything there as well. And then, of course, give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. Back with you tomorrow. This has been Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked On Sports Atlanta.